Hey guys, it's Will at Third and Long. Welcome to my 2023 Week 11 college football playoff rankings that just came out this evening. So let's break down the 1 through 25 to see who went up, who went down, and if they are where we think they should be. So go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe, and let's get started. So coming in at number 1, pretty much everyone from 8 up did not move at all from last week, but number 1 is Ohio State Buckeyes at 9-0. They are coming off of that win. It was like 36-17 versus Rutgers. It was a really close game first half. They did dominate the second half. So Ohio State, as of right now, just kind of seems like a placeholder in the number 1 spot at this point of the season. So they do have the best resume so far, but I don't actually think anyone thinks they are the number 1 team so far. They're just giving them the number 1 spot because they have the best resume so far. But it's like they're ready to dump them out of that spot once Michigan beats Penn State or once Georgia starts, because they have the last couple tough games with Ole Miss. They might jump them after this weekend. But as of right now, the Buckeyes are holding on to that number 1 spot, but not convincingly on the eye test so far. Coming in at number 2, we have the Georgia Bulldogs at 9-0, coming off of that win versus ranked Missouri. So they finally beat a ranked team this year, but they did not move up to that number 1 spot, which I'm perfectly fine with because as of right now, they have the 90th strength of schedule, but the Buckeyes have the number 20th. So they definitely should not jump them because they finally played and beat a ranked team. Buckeyes should still hold on to the number 1 spot. Now, Georgia has Ole Miss this weekend, so if they beat them, then I think that they will catapult the Buckeyes and they will take over that number 1 spot. Coming in at number 3, we have the Michigan Wolverines, the number 1 defense in every single category this year. They have the off-the-field stuff going on with Jim Harbaugh. It does not matter on the field, though. This team is completely dominating. Even if he gets suspended 1 or 2 games, it will not matter. They are going to curb stomp everybody that they're playing. They have Penn State this weekend. If they beat Penn State, and if they beat Penn State at Penn State worse than the Buckeyes beat them, then it is very conceivable that Georgia could move up to number 1, beating Ole Miss, and Michigan could potentially move up to number 2, maybe, and then the Buckeyes would be 3. But as of right now, they have their first ranked matchup. They have to beat the brakes off of Penn State to me. Coming in at number 4, we have Florida State coming off of that win versus Pitt. It was kind of a sloppy, slow win. Coleman was out. A lot of players missing. Jordan Travis was finally healthy, but he's been banged up for the last month and a half. This team has Miami this weekend. This could be a tough game. This could be a blowout for Florida State. So it can kind of go either way because it is a rivalry game, so which Miami shows up. But as of right now, Florida State is perfectly positioned. They have a cake schedule. Just run the table. They'll probably have Louisville in the ACC championship. If they beat them, then they're in. If they lose any game, they're out because their schedule's just too soft. LSU losing hurts Florida State because that was their best win on the schedule so far, and now they have 3 losses. But as of right now, they are definitely deserving of number 4. Coming in at 5, we have the Washington Huskies at 9-0. They beat USC this past weekend. What was it, 51-42 or 52-41? It was a really good game. 2 of the best quarterbacks in college football going at it. Michael Penix is probably number 1 or 2 in the Heisman right now. So they definitely have it going. They have the offense going. They have to work on that defense. But as of right now, they do have one of the best wins so far, if not the best win of the early season, having beat the Oregon Ducks. Coming in at number 6, we have the highest ranked 1-loss team. We have Oregon Ducks at 8-1. They are 6. Like I said, everybody 8 down stayed exactly where they were last week. But Oregon at 8-1, the best 1-loss team in the country. Some people think they're the best team in the country, and if they get to play Washington in the Pac-12 championship, if they beat them, they will have made up for that loss. So all they have to do, run the table, beat Washington, and they are in the playoffs. For the Heisman, Bo Nix. Just like Michael Penix, it's 1 or 2 flip-flop between them both. So Bo Nix having a great year. He has 1 interception, 1 fumble this whole year. This team is crazy. Top 10 offense, well, the number 3 offense and the number 11 defense in the country. Probably the most rounded team in all of college football right now. So they are just outside of the playoffs, but they just have to win out. Coming in at 7, we have the Texas Longhorns at 8-1. They also have one of the better wins this season. They beat the brakes off of Bama in Tuscaloosa. Now, Quinn Ewers has been out in the last 2 weeks. He's supposed to be out this Saturday. Malik Murphy should be starting at quarterback for the Longhorns. They have to beat TCU. They have to run out the rest of their schedule. Whoever they play in the Big 12 championship, it could be Oklahoma, it could be Oklahoma State. If it's Oklahoma, they have the opportunity to make up for their only loss. If it is Oklahoma State, they have the opportunity to be a highly ranked Big 12 team. So all they have to do, just like the other teams, win out and they're in. Coming in at 8, we have Alabama at 8-1. So they're coming off of a good win this past weekend, and this weekend they have Kentucky coming up. Pretty much they've made it through the tough portion of their schedule. So all they have to do is just win out, win the SEC West, and then they have their chance at Georgia in the SEC Championship. That could be an interesting game because if it's Georgia, and if they beat Georgia, does Bama jump the other one-loss teams and get into the playoffs? I don't know, because it kind of just depends on who the one-loss teams are. What if it's Texas? Texas beat them, so they can't conceivably jump them. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays off. But as of right now, they have made it through the gauntlet, and they just have to ride it out, basically. Coming in at 9, we have Ole Miss. They're 8-1. They moved up one spot. They have their chance at Georgia this weekend. If they beat Georgia, they could potentially be completely throwing the college playoffs into complete chaos. Things would get crazy. You would have a lot of one-loss teams there that all have a case to be in the playoffs as of right now. Coming in at but they definitely should be number 9. Lane Kiffin's squad is having a great season so far this year. Coming in at 10, we have Penn State at 8-1. They did move up one spot. This team has a top 10 defense. The biggest issue on offense for Drew Aller. He has one pick this year. He has no vertical weapons to throw to. That's the main thing that's been holding them back. They have to unleash him. They have to let him air it out. Their run game's been kind of lackluster the last month. They have Michigan this week. Michigan is going to shut the run game down. They will be forced to throw the ball. Michigan's defense is just as good as the Buckeyes, if not better, because they're both like 1-3 right now in all of college football. So they are going to be forced to move the ball on offense. Can they do it? If they beat Michigan somehow, I don't think they will, but if they do, complete chaos for all of college football, basically. Who wins the Big Ten? Because if Michigan beats the Buckeyes, Penn State beats Michigan, Buckeyes beat Penn State, then they're all technically tied. So complete chaos. Michigan has to beat them, but Penn State has to earn their stripes right now. But they did move up one spot. Coming in at 11, we have Louisville at 8-1. They moved up 2 spots. They are having a very strong year so far this year. They have a top 20 offense. They have a top 20 defense. A very well-rounded team. They've made it through the hard portion of their schedule. They do have Miami coming up. That might be a competitive game, maybe. But as of right now, they're perfectly in position to finish 11-1 in the ACC and then have an ACC championship matchup versus Florida State. Florida State needs that matchup because they need a highly ranked matchup. Coming in at 12, we have Oregon State at 7-2. They moved up 4 spots. They're having a great year. They did win 10 games last year. They have DJU. They have a good running game. They're not the number 12 team. I think kind of slow down. Pac-12 is very competitive, very deep this year. This is a really good team. I'm not knocking them, but I don't think they're the number 12 team. Why'd they jump up 4 spots? To me, that's a little too much, but nonetheless, props to them. This is the last year of the Pac-12. They have no home going into next year, so they're having a really strong season, so good to them. Coming in at 13, we have Tennessee at 7-2, moving up 4 spots. They beat the brakes off of like a 1-8 UConn team, and they moved up 4 spots. How do you justify that? That makes absolutely no sense. Now, I'm not knocking Tennessee. Joe Milton's not having the best year, but they have a very good run game. They have a decent defense. Very strong year. They lost a lot of pieces from last year's team. So as of right now, for this team to be 13, they're doing pretty dang good. But they beat UConn, and they moved them up 4 spots. That makes no sense. UConn is a complete dumpster fire. Everyone can put 60 on them. But strong year, to me, they're a little too high. That has to be SEC bias right there. Coming in at 14, we have Missouri at 7-2. They fell 2 spots. They did lose 30-21 versus Georgia this past weekend, still having a very strong year in the SEC East. They are 7-2. Do I think they're the number 14 team when all is said and done? No, but they are still a very good team. They're probably like a 17-18-ish team right now, but a very strong team with a really good offense led by Cook. Coming in at 15, making a big jump, Oklahoma State, 7-2. They jumped up 7 spots after beating Oklahoma. It was kind of some questionable calls there at the very end. That was definitely pass interference on Oklahoma State at the end of that game with Dylan Gabriel with that pass that he threw. The guy basically yanked him down. Should have been a first down. Nonetheless, they did beat the Sooners, having a good year so far this year. They were not ranked to start the year, so the fact that at week 11 they are 15, that's pretty dang awesome. They are 7-2. They are in control. They just have to win out, and they will potentially have the opportunity to play Texas. If they beat Texas, that's a big middle finger basically to Texas and the Sooners, leaving the Big 12. So that'll be a really fun story. Coming in at 16, we have Kansas at 7-2. Another team that's never good at football. In week 11, they are number 16, 7-2. They jumped up 5 spots, having a good year. They can run the ball down people's throats. They've had some close losses, but they've had some really good wins. They are 7-2 right now, and they've beaten Oklahoma just like Oklahoma State did. So, strong year. They definitely deserve their ranking where they are right now. Coming in at 17, so a lot of Big 12 teams here. We have Oklahoma Sooners at 7-2. They fell 8 spots, having lost to Oklahoma State. So this is back-to-back losses for them. They could potentially have a third straight loss this weekend. They have to right the ship. Dylan Gabriel is a great quarterback, but as of right now, they still have not established the run game. That's their biggest drawback. They cannot run the ball. You must be able to run the ball if you are in the top 15. And their defense. That was their saving grace the first 8 games. That's been their Achilles heel the last 2 to 3 games. They have to get the defense on track, especially that defensive line. But they're still having a good year because did they even start the year ranked? I don't think they did. So they're 7-2. They jumped them too high into the top 10 this year. They were not that good. They still have to build up depth. They're still having a good year in the last year of them being in the Big 12. Coming in at 18, we have Utah at 7-2. They did not move at all. They've been doing a little better on the offensive side of the ball as of right now, but they still have a garbage offense. They can't move the ball, but they have a top 10 defense. They have really good special teams, and Kyle Whittingham is a great coach. They deserve to be where they are. Pac-12 is the deepest, most competitive conference this year. The fact that they're 7-2 is a saving grace, really. That's a really tough conference. They have made it through the gauntlet, basically, just to get to 7-2 without Cam Rising. That's a pretty big deal. Coming in at 19, we have LSU at 6-3. They fell 5 spots, so they fell pretty decent. They had Jaden Daniels get knocked out at the beginning of the 4th quarter this past weekend, and that's one of the things that cost them the game. He was the Heisman frontrunner, and they lost that game. He's out now, been completely thrown off of all of the Heisman boards. But they're one of the best offensive teams in college football. Their biggest drawback, they cannot stop anyone from scoring. I think they've given up 40 points like 3 to 4 times this year. That's a lot for LSU. They should not be giving up that many points. They have to fix the defensive side of the ball. Now, I did pick this team at the beginning of the year to finish 9-3 at best, 8-4 at worst. So I'm pretty much spot on right there. But they need to win out. They need to finish the year 9-3. Coming in at 20, we have Notre Dame at 7-3. They fell 5 spots. So they lost a really sloppy game this past weekend. They need to get a couple things right on offense. Them, just like Penn State, they have no vertical weapons. That's their biggest drawback. But still a really good year because they had a 4-week gauntlet there where they've played 4 undefeated teams straight. 4 straight weekends. So that kind of hurt them. They're still a very good team, and they have a top 10 defense. Coming in at 21, we have Arizona. They were not ranked last week. Welcome to the top 25. They are 6-3. They have really good wins, and they have really close losses. They barely lost to Washington. They barely lost to USC. This team could potentially have been 8-1, 7-2 right now, but they are 6-3. A very competitive team. Props to Jed Fish. This team is really good for a really young squad. Coming in at 22, we have the Iowa Hawkeyes at 7-2. They were not ranked last week. I completely disagree with them. Hawkeyes are complete trash. They have a top 10 defense. I'm not knocking that. Kirk Ferentz is a really good coach. They always have one of the best defenses in all of college football. They have a god-awful, the worst offense in the history of college football. It's straight out of the History Channel. It's so old. They run the ball. It's from 1960. It's pathetic, the fact that this team averages like 12 points per game in 2023. If this team could average just 25 points per game, they could win a national championship. But Kirk Ferentz hired his son, Brian Ferentz, refused to fire him, and now the athletic director has stated that he will be fired after this. Well, not fired. He won't be coming back in 2024. Why the hell was he there in 2023 anyways? They had the worst offense last year, and they're continuing it this year. Kirk Ferentz will never get to the mountaintop if he has favorites like this. Everybody knew that his son was horrible, and he kept him as coordinator. So he purposely sabotaged his own team, but nonetheless, they are number 22 right now. I do not believe that they should be ranked until they can score 20 points in one game. Tulane moved up one spot, 8-1. They've been having one possession victories every single game. They had not been beating the spread. Their only loss was to Ole Miss, and they did not have Pratt at quarterback, and they barely lost that game. This is a very talented group of 5 team, the best group of 5 team at this point of the season. Coming in at 24, we have the North Carolina Tar Heels at 7-2. They were not ranked last week, so welcome to the top 25. This is pretty fun right here because this gives Drake May something to play for the rest of the season. This guy is a top 5 pick. We want to see him play competitive football, so it's good for them to be in the top 25 to make sure that he plays every game for the rest of the season. Coming in at 25, we have Kansas State at 6-3. They did fall 2 spots, but this is still a very talented Big 12 team. So dropping from the rankings, we have the UCLA Bruins. They did lose. We have USC, and we have Air Force. So USC is probably going to lose this weekend, so they'll be, whatever that is, 7-4. Could they end the season in the top 25? Potentially, but nonetheless, those are the teams that dropped out of the top 25. So that's my breakdown of the Week 11 College Football Playoff rankings. Hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks.